we go. Hey, everyone. Yan Zhao here live with John Hervey of Beyond Time Inc.,
Woo.
world famous author of the Black Tiger series, currently with Black Tiger Hidden Dragon, Indiegogo campaign, and the recently closed Magna.
That's right. That is right, man. How are you doing, Yang?
It's been one of those weeks.
Has it, brother?
It has. But pretty good getting back into creating. That's the most important thing.
Hey, that's where you really get your juices flowing. I'm glad you're getting back into that, you know.
Definitely. So what about you? Magna is finished.
Yes, sir.
Black Tiger has just entered its second month on Indiegogo.
That's correct.
And let me see here if I don't boomer this up. I am. There we go.
I know the feeling.
So Black Tiger is well funded, well over its goal. You've made several stretch goals. So what will this upcoming month bring us?
So, I mean, really just trying to just expand the reach. It's always just trying to get more folks that are to be aware of the project and hopefully find some other eyeballs, because we're trying to determine how much we're actually going to end up, printing at the end of the day. So, and shows are starting to open back up. So, we want to see where we kind of land with the campaign. Once the campaign is over, we'll go to printing and print some overage, hoping that some people will get in demand and then have some to go to shows. But right now, I mean, it's an interesting time because I'm seeing folks are returning to shows, and I'm hoping that continues. And we're trying to take the peanut butter and the jelly and put it together now.
Nice.
Have the shows, but I think the physical shows, but I think the streaming shows are an integral part that won't go away. It can't go away. I mean, Black Tiger and Magna, wouldn't have been seen by anyone other than my mom if it wasn't for, these streaming platforms.
Well, it definitely is good to get the word out there. And it's interesting, especially when you meet up with people who you normally wouldn't ever, not to say that you wouldn't associate with them in a bad way, but you just never really run across them in real life, or they wouldn't be running the same circles. But with all these shows, you get such a mishmash. You could really meet a lot of people.
I like it. It's really cool. And like you said, you realize that you have commonality with so many different folks that you otherwise, whether geographical reasons or whatever, you would never have really been in contact with otherwise. And really building, kind of connectivity to a lot of folks. I love it. I love getting into chats and seeing people, whether it's their, kind of their pseudonyms or their real names, and you see them, and you're like, I know who that is. I know who that is. That's cool. I know that, and it's fun. It's really, this is the part I don't think I expected, was just the community. I really enjoy the community.
And another thing that's nice about it is I realized sort of in my day job is that, once you're sort of out of a school situation, it's hard to really get together with other professionals in the industry, especially when you're on the same level, And so it's really nice just to sort of chat with other people about, certain things like, how do you write things? And, when you're like, even some people, I'll ask like, oh, well, what kind of music do you listen to when you're writing or when you're drawing, and you get to ask other people about like, oh, so how did you run your campaign? What did you find effective?
Right.
And you get all these tips that it's really hard to get as a working professional.
I agree. And I feel like there's so much almost, I guess institutional isn't the word, but it's like kind of corporate knowledge that people have that people are so willing to share. So you're like, man, we're learning from, of course, the things we're doing, but we're learning from other people's campaigns, learning how people are, the good and the bad. That's what I love. People are pretty transparent. So kind of learning what works, learning what doesn't work. You know, it would be a shame for all of us to have to, you know, all of us have to repeat the same mistakes, but we don't. As long as you're like kind of, you know, integrated in the community, you know, people are more than willing to share and willing to share things that are, you know, hey, you know, this is something that you want to do with your campaign, or, you know, beware, you know, this, you know, this is something that can, and I've seen it in a lot of ways. I've seen people give advice, of course, with regards to how your campaign is structured, but also things like perks, you know, perks and you know, kind of things that you'll get, like the stretch goals. You know, I've heard so many different things from so many different angles. I mean, the stretch goals are awesome and they help entice people, but I've also heard of folks that they've added so many stretch goals that they really kind of demolish their own budget.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like you have to calculate that out first. Like, if I'm going to add X number of pages, I need to be making, you know, so many more dollars. Or if I'm going to include like a 11 by 17 poster, how much in sales? First of all, does it make it economical to print? And then the other is like, how much more in sales do you have to make in order to make up for the extra money you have to spend?
And kind of knowing what our margins are. I think people, myself included, I think we're getting a lot more savvy. I mean, honestly, with my first campaign with Black Tiger Legacy of Fury, you know, I still do it all the time with my campaigns now, but you know, I still have my fanboy hat on. So I was like, man, this would be cool. This would be cool. I'm going to do this because this is freaking cool. And I did a couple of things that, you know, basically, you know, weren't well budgeted. You know, we're going to fulfill. We've fulfilled everything. It's not anybody else's fault if I can't budget. You know, so there were a couple of things, like the amount of pages that I added to that book, the hardcovers. Those things were like great ideas, but not well budgeted ideas.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do look at some people's campaigns. Like, I was talking to one guy not too long ago, and he's the campaign that he was working on, it failed a couple of times on Kickstarter and on Indiegogo. And then, you know, in looking at it, the price of his book, he was only charging like $12, and every time it would fail, he would add like another 20 pages to it.
Right.
So he's doing it like 100 and some pages for like $12.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, I bet you if you raised the price up to like 20 or 25, you would have made it on the last funding.
Right.
You know, so
those elements are key. Another element that is key is the shipping. I forgot who we were on with, and he's become like between when he launched his campaign and now, Alejandro, he's like super savvy now, because he's been like a sponge. He's been soaking up stuff. I'm sure he knows things that I need to learn. I was on I don't think it was the comic shit, but I was on a show with him when he first launched, and I backed his book at that time, but there was no shipping. So we all kind of got into a discussion, and he had at the time, I think it was Alejandro's book. I mean, I don't know if I'm wrong. I apologize. But the book had 0 shipping assessed worldwide. You know, so then we kind of talked through it, and he already had some folks in different parts of the world that had backed. I mean, you got to honor that,
right?
But then I think he did a good thing. He shut that perk, reopened a perk that had, you know, shipping costs assessed, and it's just realizing that, you know, we all realize that in this kind of you know, this new reality that we're in with the crowdfunding, the shipping cost is real. It's something that, you know, us as consumers, we have to be willing to pay in order to receive the books. And he was just kind of thinking like, well, you know, this is something great to do for folks. But it's like, yeah, but if you move the number of books that you're looking to move, you're going to find yourself way in the red.
Yeah.
You know, you have people in the UK, in Australia, and he has some UK, Australia. I think he's somewhere internationally. So I'm like,
He's in Italy, right?
I think so. So I don't remember what the story is with his production. I don't know if he has somebody stateside that's going to be shipping it, But
I don't know.
you're right. I think he's in Italy. So I was like, man, you have so much, in terms of international, that's going to bury you. But he fixed that. But those are things that, like, you know what? If he's just kind of running around doing his thing, he's not a part of a community. He doesn't have folks like, that have been through some of these things to talk about. Maybe he runs his campaign. Maybe he finds himself in a place where he's like, dude, man, I'm out of pocket, not hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, because I've got to get these books shipped. And I've been astounded at how expensive it is. It's a travesty, how expensive it is to ship some of these books. Like, some of these places like Australia and things, it costs more to ship than it does for the book.
Ouch.
I know.
Yeah.
It sucks.
That's one thing I'm hoping for the future, is that there sort of becomes a worldwide network where, maybe to cut costs, you would fulfill your own shipments domestically, but then maybe there's some company in Australia, there's some company in, I don't know, East Asia, maybe one in Europe, that, it would be possible to sort of contract with and say, okay, you do the printing and you do the shipping out of there.
Yeah.
So you just divide those over, and hopefully that would work, but
yeah,
I don't know.
So I have a question. You're reading manga, right?
I read some manga.
Read some manga? Okay. Because I was just thinking, kind of prior to the show, because I always have fun talking with you. I was just thinking about, the market, especially the market in Japan, and just what a robust market it is for their books, and how kind of anemic it is for kind of the stuff we're doing now. And I was just thinking about the models, the business model. I mean, it seems like, especially what we're doing with the crowdfunding, I mean, the price point is pretty high, and the stuff in Japan, I mean, it's like,
it's disposable.
And I guess you have more understanding of kind of like Asia than I do, but it's like, I know when I did visit Japan, it didn't dawn on me like, man, I realized I was in the city, but I was like, these places are small. Here in the US, we collect stuff.
Yep.
If you live in a spot like that, you're probably not collecting much of anything.
Well, you know what? You would be surprised, actually.
Really?
So most Japanese will not invite people into their homes.
Oh.
And the few times I have been, they'll have sort of like IKEA shelves, like those boxy things, and a whole wall will be taken up and it'll be filled with whatever stuff they collect. So
really,
I was there in the mid 2000s, so there were still CDs. There'd be CDs. You'd have just piles and piles of manga, and the houses are not nearly as clean as Japan's image would lead you to believe. It's just
really
like piles of stuff because they don't really have a lot of space.
That actually makes sense.
So, there is a lot of that, but first of all, we have to go back a little bit. They had Yukio, which was a style of line art, basically, and they had this cultural phenomenon of drawn and colored art, and pictures that would go with text, and that went back hundreds of years even, but especially prominent in the late 1800s. So when you get
that way predates American comics.
Oh yeah. Now they weren't comic books per se,
right?
But you'd have like one or two images with text on them, and then in the 1900s, when really American comics pick up, they start getting stuff over there, and they especially love Disney. And before World War II, that's already influenced, and they're already starting to make those kind of books.
Okay.
And the main difference is here in the US, you're kind of expected to grow out of comics at some point. And most people do. They hit their later teens and they're just not collecting anymore for various reasons. But over there, everybody reads them all the time. And part of that, in my opinion, has to do with the fact that you can still find manga everywhere over there.
Yeah.
At gas stations, convenience stores, and convenience stores are a lot more popular and important over there than they are here.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of times it's actually cheaper to eat out over there than to cook at home.
Okay.
And a lot of it's like the here I would never consider eating, like a sandwich from 7-Eleven or something, because it's just like a little too questionable. You don't know how long that hot dog's been on there.
Yeah,
But
you're putting your life in your own hands with that. I used to do that in high school.
Yep.
But it's like, yeah.
I mean, over there, I would eat sushi from convenience stores.
And that's the crazy thing. It seems like you can get anything in a vending machine there.
Yeah, except for food. That was the
Okay.
one thing I had a hard time finding. I think I saw one vending machine once that had M&Ms, and the only other vending machine I ever saw like that was one near a station near my house that had ice cream.
Okay.
But getting back to comics, and then they also have the culture of what's a manga kisa. So a kisa-ten is like a cafe, and traditionally people would go there and read. And so what happened is some of these places, they would just leave their books, right? And so the owners, they're like, hey, free reading material, and they would get some shelves and just put whatever people left on there. And it became very popular to go in, you get your coffee and you start reading books. So at some point, someone decided like, well, I'm just going to buy a bunch of these books. Yeah. And now you have these cafes with more books than you would see in a library.
Right. Wow.
And it fills another important role because in the big cities, the trains will stop running at a certain time of night. And so people can't get home after work. And, you don't necessarily want to go to a bar. So people will go there and they'll pay some money, and you could get a private cubicle with a computer and a TV, or you could just sit at a table and read whatever comics you want.
Okay.
And especially for women, because women see it as a very safe place. So, nothing bad's going to happen to you in the middle of the night. So you have all these cultural things that we've sort of cut out here in the US. The comic book stores are great. I like them, but you would never go to a comic book store unless you need comic books.
Right.
Like you would never go to a golf store unless you're playing golf or you need a golf gift for someone.
Exactly.
So they have material that's just all over the place that you can't help but bump into. You're waiting to pay for your gyoza, and you're like, oh, hey, this looks interesting, and then you start reading. There's all sorts of manga left on the bus, especially the dirty ones.
People just leave it there
on the trains. Yeah. So they'll leave it because they don't want their girlfriends or their wives.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So the culture is so different, and I think we need to try to get more of that here. Clint Stoker, Sweetcast.
Yeah.
His model, I think, is one that has a potential for a lot of success, where he's got his prestige book with Downcast, right? You get all the high quality, you get the extra perks, you get some extra story in it. But then he's being published by Alterna. So you can still buy it cheap, and it's still at that disposable entertainment level that comic books were, from all the way from the 30s up until the 80s.
So he has both. So basically it's the same content, but he's appealed to two different markets, like the collectors versus kind of the casual readers.
Exactly. And I wouldn't say it's 100% the same. So anybody who got Downcast 2, there's an extra 12 pages or something at the end where it describes the world, like why is there a flying city, what's up with the goddess, how did all this stuff come to be, that you don't get with the Alterna version. So if you pay the premium, you are getting more content. So it's not, I've seen some people complain like, oh, well, why would I pay $25 for what I could get for $2? And it's not the same.
Yeah.
But the comic itself from Alterna actually looks really good. I have to admit, it looks better than I thought it would, just based on the way that the I guess you say graphic novels are colored and everything. So I
And
think
he's got a big following too, though. That seemed to have. I mean, like, he's got a big following that has gotten the prestige. Does he first go publish Alterna and then he publishes Prestige, or
no, the other way around.
Other way around, Prestige, and then okay.
So, and that makes a lot of sense to me too, because if I'm paying a premium, I want it first. I mean, you could see what happened with the Red Rooster debacle. I guess you'd say a lot of people were very unhappy that the book they paid $25 for came out first at Walmart. So, you know, if people who pay more, you get more perks, right? That makes sense. And when he's writing them, they're published through Indiegogo campaigns first, and then they go into the. He got the alternate deal later, so the ones that he's making, or so after campaigns fulfilled, they'll end up going into print in the floppies.
Okay.
So in my opinion, what needs to happen now is somebody needs to be able to become like the Dollar Tree of physical comic book stores. Where they're carrying floppies printed in, you know, a cheaper format like newsprint that still looks decent. But then, you know, that's how you get it into people's hands.
But do you think it needs to be like a coffee or like a comic shop, or should it be more of like a coffee shop style comic shop? I
think, well, we're kind of under COVID's thumb right now. But before COVID, there's a few gaming cafes out here in LA, and oh my God, they're just packed all the time. You go in, you pay a certain amount for, you know, drinks and food if you want, and you get a table.
Are those in K-Town? Where in LA are they?
There's a bunch of them. The one I'm thinking of is in Burbank.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get the name for you later if you want. But so once you pay, you can either bring your own games, and I've seen people play D&D there. I played D&D there once, and then there's a ton of other board games. You just go on the shelf and you pick one up, and you can play with your friends. So I think if somebody came up with a company where you're selling comics, you know, to a store like that, like let's say, hey, you have your gaming thing, I will sell you one bookshelf full of comics that people can come in and read. You know, I think something like that would start getting things out there.
And that's a part of people's experience. So when they go in, they've already paid. So if they want, they can just read some of the comics. They can play games. That's cool.
You know, and let's say they're going through floppy versions of the first Black Tiger, right? So there was 176 pages, so that would be over 10 issues, right? So they check out like number 5, and they're like, "Oh, hey, what's this Black Tiger thing? That's pretty cool. Now I want to see the rest of them."
Right.
You know, and then it gives them an opening, and then they say, "Oh, well, I like this. I wonder if any more are coming out." And then they see Black Tiger Hidden Dragon, the prestige version. They're, "Oh, well, you know, I like this. I want to back that one."
Right.
So, in my opinion, we need to. I think the way to go ahead and grow the pie to get more people back into it is you have to bifurcate it, because comics were always a cheap, disposable form of entertainment, and they need to become back to that.
You're right.
You know, the ones we're doing now, they're good, but they're mostly appealing to people in their 40s. We need somehow to get back into younger generations, so they have an interest in it as well.
What you're saying makes 100% sense. I like that, because then that's the big challenge for me too. I'm thinking to myself, it's like, comics are great. We can't just be aging out as a culture. You know, there's no reason to age out as a culture. People say, "Oh, well, you know," but like Japan's not aging out as a culture on comics.
Nope.
They have young, from 8 to 80 people reading manga.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, I was thinking about
or manga fans over there.
I remember the first time I went to I think it's in Little Tokyo, I think it's the New Otani Hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and they had like I think there's a curry house like on the second floor, but then there's also a spot that was selling a whole bunch of manga.
Oh.
And I don't know if it's still there, but like the first time I went there with a buddy of mine, and I'm not like I've never been like a huge kind of manga person, but it was amazing to me how much manga was in there, and
Mm-hmm.
people from all stripes of life.
Yep.
People were young, people were old. I mean, we spent so much time in there because like they had manga on basketball. I mean, you name it. They had a manga for it.
Yeah,
I
I always like to tell the story. One of the weirdest ones I ever saw was about a guy who had a superpower, and his superpower was he could create the perfect food so that any business meeting would succeed. So you're hitting up Toyota to sell, rear view mirrors with them. This guy would create the perfect food so that the CEO of Toyota would agree to buy your mirrors.
That's awesome.
And that I have to say too, that's one of the nicer things that I like about manga over current American comics is there's still so I have this theory about how the industry has been on a decline since the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the capes and cowls version of comics were the first ones to sort of buck the comics code authority, and they would do things that were more edgy. Like they would mention drugs. It was always seen as a bad thing, but they would actually mention them. Right. So what happened is a lot of the best artists and the best writers in the field migrated over to the capes and cowls.
Capes and cowls, yeah.
So in the 80s, when comics decided to take themselves seriously for a few minutes, they had a lot of fantastic art, a lot of fantastic writers, and all the other genres just sort of fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
You lost all the Westerns, you had G.I. Joe, but otherwise you lost the war comics.
Yeah.
Sci-fi was kind of there, but it was going away too.
Yeah.
And by the 90s, all you have is superhero stuff.
So true.
If you're not into superhero, there's not a whole lot left for you. Whereas, before, if you looked at comic books, there were a ton of women buying comics, and it was still younger people, but you had all different demographics because there was always something for them. And that's something you see in manga today. Whereas the big two, even though they say they want more diversity and stuff, everything they're doing is just like a poor, to me, it's like when you Xerox something and every successive generation gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
It's like I read somewhere the X-Men are going to have another Inferno series. Like, bro, just go read the one from 89. It was the best.
Yeah, it's like, and how many times has DC had a crisis? The first one was awesome. Yes. But it's like you can't keep rehashing the same thing. What you're saying makes a lot of sense. It's funny. My son, he was looking at some of my old books, and he pulled out a DC book called All Out War. Mm-hmm. They had war comics. And I was like, hey, you're right. Man, you pick up, war comics. I wasn't big in, but there was horror comics. There was war comics. There's all kinds of different things. There was romance comics.
Yes. My mom told me stories of her reading romance comics in the 50s.
Man.
So, and in some ways we have to get back to that. It's something you do see with the indie scene.
Yeah.
The more people that are here, like the more different genres I'm starting to see.
Right.
In fact, you don't see a whole lot of cape and cowl.
Yeah, it's true.
So, for me, I think that's excellent. It's where it needs to go. And there'll probably be some iteration of it like 5 to 10 years later where clumps of these people will get together and form new companies where they're, smaller versions of what Marvel and DC was.
Mm-hmm.
Or Image, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. And hopefully at that point, they'll be strong enough to be able to go to these different organizations and say, hey, we've got, 6 comics. We'll sell you a subscription for your coffee store. So you get like 5 issues of each, at a discount. And, every month we'll send you new ones, blah, blah, blah.
That makes a lot of sense. But I agree 100% with what you're saying. There has to be, we've got to get back to the diversity of distribution outlets. And like you said, I like the idea of we need to have a level where people can buy comics that are not collectors, that are not collectibles. People can get a cheap comic and then be fine with the fact that they kind of flip through it and, you know, toss to the side. I remember being a kid and even going to it was a shop that my mom would go to, and the ladies, they own the shop, but it's like they had some comics there, you know, like some old Fantastic Four or whatever, because they weren't expensive books to pick up. So they, you know, there's a drugstore across the street, so they'd grab some titles and they'd throw them in the rack. You know, they'd have them there with their magazines. They'd have magazines and comic books that you could read. Yeah,
and two, you know, I think there's a lot of untapped markets. What about pediatricians' offices? What about dentists that specialize in kids? What about beauty salons? You know, where moms will bring their kids in and the kids have to wait. You know, there's a lot of stuff where if you're creating a decently priced package, it becomes more enticing for the kid. You know, the kid says, "Hey, I want to go to that place where I could read that cool comic."
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Is the mom going to take him to some other doctor or, you know, even like the beauty salon? It's like, well, I kind of like this other person better, but my kid will actually sit for an hour if I go to the place with the comic books. So maybe I'll go there.
What you're saying is so true. I remember going to the dentist one time, and I had to wait, but the dentist had a room off to the side where he had TV, and I was watching He-Man waiting for the dentist. I was totally fine. In fact, I didn't want to go in. I'm like, I want to finish watching this episode. I don't want to, you know, but you're right. It's just making things available to folks. And you're right. As I think back, you're 100% right. I didn't get, you know, there were no comic shops at the time. I didn't get introduced to comics, you know, by going to a comic store. I got comics when I went to the stores that my mom went to.
Yep. That's exactly how it worked.
Yeah.
And then eventually so many people bought them that there became enough of a demand for comic book stores to exist. You know, so people want to talk about revitalizing comic stores. Well, first you have to get comics on the market that people want to buy. You know, lots of stores say their old long boxes sell more than the new stuff. How are they going to stay in business? Yeah.
That is not a model that you can kind of succeed with in the long term, unless all you're doing is that, just buying and selling old issues. Then you don't really need a store for that.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, things are cyclical, and I think a lot of it's going to merge. I think there's comics and sort of gaming culture, I think, are going to merge. So where you don't really have enough business with one. You need to get both. Support each other. Even the gaming stores, you know, they make a lot of their money off of renting tables for live tournaments, or, you know, Pokemon or Magic the Gathering or, you know, Warhammer or whatnot. So I think new business models are going to have to emerge, and I think that the people who are sort of ready to get their product out into these more unusual places are the ones that are going to succeed in the long run.
Makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I have another question for you, shifting kind of back to Japan.
Sure.
Do you think there's a pathway to indie books finding a market in Japan? Like US indie books?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, I think it very much could be like manga was here 20, 25 years ago, where it existed, but it was pretty niche at that time.
Yeah.
I think in general, Japan has no use for the mainstream. They weren't super into American comics even in the early 2000s when I was there.
Yeah.
And I think it's much less so with the kind of stuff that Marvel and DC and Image are pumping out these days.
Yeah.
But I definitely think some of the more mature ones, and a lot of the indie stuff, especially with how how would you say, some of the ones that are a bit more unusual, or the stories are a bit more dense, a bit better written, maybe more complex is the word I'm looking for. I can definitely see them having opportunities. I think it's just that somebody needs to promote them and get them out there. So, so talk about Taiwan, which is not the same as Japan, but is pretty similar to Japan and was ruled for 50 years by Japan. Like I sent copies of Gods and Gears #1 over there to some family and to one of the teachers. And she's like, oh, I want more. I want to use this as part of her English class because that kind of book, appealed to kids over there.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of room, but somebody needs to go and make the case. And then you also have to remember one of the characteristics of Japanese people from Japan, Japanese people, is that they're kind of resistant to change unless it's a sure thing. So you have to find some of the more adventurous people. A lot of times they're younger, more like art aficionado types. They would be interested and they can make a case, and then, so that's the thing. You sort of need some Japanese people on your side vouching for you. Like, yeah, this book is really good. You should really read this.
That's cool.
But I could definitely see a case for somebody who, sort of buys foreign distribution rights for these books and like makes a case to these, the manga cafes and to places like that. It says, oh, well, we'll give you like one section of foreign books. Everybody over there wants to speak English, right? So how about you have English comics like at different levels for kids, for teens, for young adults.
That's kind of cool.
So there's room, but somebody's got to do the legwork and get it over there.
Yeah. These are all good thoughts, man. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're all trying to find a market, trying to expand the market. I think we all realize that we're in a nice window right now, with regards to, I guess, collectors. Because at the end of the day, all of us that are buying these books, we're collectors.
Yes.
Well, and we're kind of a niche.
You definitely have the people who were alive in the late 80s and 90s when things were overbought by collectors.
Yeah.
Those people still exist and they still want to buy collector stuff, but you're not getting the pressure like you were from before. Like in what was it, 92? Would anyone buy like a Black Tiger to collect, or would you buy all 10 variant covers of X-Men 1?
And you would probably buy
exactly
2 versions of each of the variant cover of X-Men, and you wouldn't give Black Tiger the time of day.
Exactly. But now we're in such a great shape where the culture always wants to spread out. It's kind of like osmosis. Whatever the higher concentration is wants to go into lower concentration. But the concentration of skill and marketing and everything from the big 2 at least is so low that it's very easy for indies to get noticed.
Yeah, it's true.
It's so bad they had to start counting crowdfunded books into their into the numbers for how big the market is, just to try to make themselves look a little better.
Right. Wow.
So and they want to say the market's fine. No, who's winning? Indie producers.
Indie. Flat out. Wow.
All right.
Man, the world has changed so much just in the last few years. The world of comics has changed so much. The market was just what was going into shops. Basically Diamond was the market.
Exactly.
What was being distributed through Diamond, those were the numbers that we saw.
And are they even still around? I think they're still doing Marvel, but for how much longer?
Yeah.
And then what are they going to distribute?
Yeah, that's amazing, huh? And my thing is, if you're a comic shop owner, what are you thinking?
I don't know.
You know?
Razor blades and Drano or something.
Yeah, seriously, man. It's like this is apocalyptic level stuff.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they have to change their model. COVID sort of complicated things, but I saw a lot of shops. They were selling Funko Pop stuff. Some of them were selling a lot of art books, like how to draw, how to paint, how to do 3D art, stuff like that. Some of them, there's one I know in Pasadena. They switched it up, so half the shop was manga, half the shop was US stuff, and more games. And I think that's it. I think some shop where you have to go to physically and you want to go there and spend time, preferably with other people, is the way to go. So
agreed.
Could be games, could be books. I don't know exactly what the magic formula is, but you got to get people there, and preferably different groups of people. One of the downsides of the comic book stores is, the comic book guy stereotype.
Right.
And that's not necessarily untrue. I was studying for a licensing exam 10 years ago with a buddy, and we went out for a walk, and we were passing a comic book store, and we walked in for a minute, and it smelled like 13-year-old boys.
Yep, it reeked.
That like goatish smell. You can't have that kind of stuff in your store if you want to attract a wide audience.
Exactly.
So, I don't know, something that mixes it up. Weird boba drinks, different flavored coffee drinks, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, make it more of a destination.
Exactly. And if you're smart, put them in college towns.
That's actually really true.
Young people have a lot of disposable money, I've noticed, and a lot of free time.
Yeah. This is true.
All right. So are you ready today for the first time to enter the Thunderdome?
I'm ready to enter the Thunderdome. Let's do this. Ooh.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So the setup is the Beyonder has returned.
Okay.
He has taken some of the greatest martial arts heroes in all of comicdom, put them on a new battle world, and we have to see who is the greatest martial artist in all of comics.
Oh man!
So the
rules is there too.
Oh yeah, the rules are this. It's not year one for anyone, so everyone has competent use of their abilities. Everyone is a hero.
Okay.
And but even though they have competent use of their abilities, none of them have godlike abilities.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
It's not the one story where Shang-Chi ended up with the Phoenix Force or something.
Right. Okay.
So let's go through each mashup.
So Black Tiger, that looks like versus Leo. Is that Leo with the blue mask?
That is.
Okay.
Leo from the Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
Above that on the left, we have Hong Kong Phooey.
Yep, Hong Kong Phooey and Batman.
On the other side, we have Aang from Last Avatar. Now, I'm going to make a ruling, since it's my channel. Okay. He does not get the Avatar state. He can still use 4 elements, but he does not get the Avatar state.
Okay.
Then we have the woman who gave a whole generation of 13-year-olds an Asian fetish.
Oh,
Psylocke.
Man. Yeah.
Under that,
Cammy.
And last, Marvel's
Shang-Chi. All right. This is a good lineup, man. You've got some good fighters here.
All right, so let's start in the upper left corner. So I will give you an opportunity to say what you think happens in the battle, and then I will come up with a version, and we will decide who is the winner.
Okay. So, and Aang is a kid.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So, I think in the skirmish between the two of them, I think Psylocke is definitely the aggressor to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
Probably catches Aang off guard a little bit with how powerful she is. I see Aang definitely rallying. It's if Aang does not have the Avatar state, he is an excellent martial artist and he's well accomplished. But I think even in his youth, I don't think he beat Psylocke. So I think that without the Avatar state, that Psylocke is the one that takes the victory.
I agree with you. Psylocke has been known to have the ability to read people's minds before they do whatever action. I think whatever Aang tries to throw at her, she knows. And she's able to dodge it. And eventually she would get close enough to knock him out with her psionic knife.
Nice.
All right, so winner of round 1, which unfortunately I can't mark, but it's Psylocke.
Psylocke.
All right, so between Cammy and Shang-Chi.
Okay. That's actually a good matchup. Cammy, she's powerful. Shang-Chi, he's the master of Kung Fu. Wow. That's actually a really tough call. I think this is a fight that will go down to the wire, but I think Shang-Chi would win.
Ooh, interesting.
It's a tough one.
I would give the tip to Cammy. Now, if this were maybe Iron Fist, and he has...
And that's true, because Shang-Chi doesn't... You already said that he doesn't have... No, go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, I think because Cammy is kind of an underdog, she kind of uses her looks, and she's been known to snap men's necks between her thighs.
Yeah.
So I kind of have to give it to her. Also, I'm going to take off a few points from Shang-Chi just because the upcoming movie looks questionable.
Yeah, it does look exceptionally questionable. Yeah.
Also, I believe he never originally had any sort of superpowers. That was sort of a later addition. It's like, oh, he's in a superhero universe. We better give him something.
That's true. No, you're right. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's true. I think I agree with you on that. I think Cammy does take the day.
All right. Well, on the left side, we have the ladies pulling out ahead. We have Psylocke and Cammy.
Mm-hmm.
And how about on the right? Batman versus Hong Kong Phooey.
So here's the funny thing about Hong Kong Phooey. The funny thing about Hong Kong Phooey is his bungling is almost like Black Cat level. You know what I mean? His bungling is almost like a power. But at the end of the day, we're talking about the Batman. And the Batman will know his enemy. He will know all about Hong Kong Phooey. I don't think Hong Kong Phooey can stand against the Bat.
Yeah, when I originally picked him, had he not ended up in a random draw with the Batman, I think he could have made it into the second round with some of the other characters. But I got to say, you're right. Batman probably would have like some 10-point plan to find out whatever Hong Kong Phooey's kryptonite is.
Yeah.
And then use it against him. So
that's the challenge. That's the challenge with Batman, right? Isn't the whole thing that if he has enough time, he can beat anyone? Isn't that the whole thing with the Batman?
Kind of, yeah. So, well, and he has virtually unlimited resources.
Right.
Hong Kong Phooey is stuck with a janitor's salary, so it makes it tough.
That's true.
It makes it tough to fight Batman's gadgets.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, and then in the bottom right, we have Jen.
Yes.
Versus Leo.
So, Jen is using Black Tiger style Kung Fu. I guess Leo is using his ninja skills, his ninjutsu. Mm-hmm. And the thing that Jen does have powers that she can exploit that are above and beyond just the martial arts. So from a martial arts standpoint, I think maybe the two are at kind of a pretty much toe to toe. But Jen has other powers. She also has superhuman strength. So I would give it, and I can't have my girl go out in the first round. What kind of? That's my girl. I can't have her go out in the first round. So
And I am with you. Now, if this were like a group match, I think Leo would rate higher because he would be a fantastic leader.
I agree.
But since we're not talking about the first issue of Black Tiger Gen, we're talking about a Gen who has mastered the Black Tiger powers.
That's right.
I don't think there's any way that Leo could beat her in the long run.
That's my thought as well.
All right. So, Psylocke and Cammy.
That's a tough fight. I'll tell you. You know, even the winner's limping away from this one. Winner's not walking away.
That's true.
You know, Psylocke is so difficult because of her ability to read the mind.
Mm-hmm.
But Cammy, I think, is also very disciplined.
Yes.
You know, and I think Cammy would almost throw her false positives, throw her false signals. You know, would be able to think things and do something else. And Cammy's so darn powerful, man.
She is.
You know,
fast.
she's fast as lightning and she's super powerful. I think that Psylocke ends up falling victims to the powerful legs of Cammy.
You know, I gotta agree with you on this one. Another thing about Cammy is she is used to fighting M. Bison, who has his psycho power, which I think would be very similar in a lot of ways to Psylocke. He did take over Cammy once, at least in the animated movie. So I think she would be extra resistant to Psylocke, and not having that advantage would throw Psylocke off.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I like that.
On the left side, Cammy is the winner.
Cammy is now going to the finals of the Thunderdome.
And then the last one, or not the last one, but the semifinals, Batman versus Jen.
So here's the challenge with this matchup. So Jen has super strength. Batman is like an Olympic level, you know, athlete kind of guy. Jen has super speed, and she has powers. Now, I think it really comes down to what in the world does this dude have in his belt, and where exactly are they fighting? You know, because he can almost use Gotham City as, you know, as an advantage in and of itself. You know, it's like the city almost works for him, you know, because he knows it like the back of his hand. Batman is just this dude. Golly, it's hard. I mean, it's like.
See, for me, it comes down to one thing. Because I can see Batman discovering Jen's secret, and he will bring out her ex-boyfriend to the battle.
Yeah.
So the question is, will Jen kick him to the curb in this battle? Is she over him? Is she, or not necessarily over him, but can she resist his manly charms? I guess is how you say it. Or will she be distracted and give Batman the advantage?
You know, Jen is an amazing character. She, on the personal side, as confident and as strong as she is, she definitely, in some ways, struggles with confidence when it comes to personal relationships and things of that nature. That's just not a strong suit for her. I mean, I feel like from a psychological perspective, if Batman knows who she is, and Batman is able to basically use her past against her, I think Batman will figure out a way to win.
Ooh, interesting.
I mean, this dude beat Superman.
That's true, but yeah, I don't know. And
I mean, I'm just saying, like, maybe I'm giving Batman too much credence here, but I just don't know maybe I need to take a step back because it's unfair. Like Eric said in the chat, then Batman wins everything. Just then Batman wins everything. I mean, from a physical standpoint, he's not going to beat Jin with physicality. He's not going to beat Jin with speed. He's not going to beat Jin in a brawl. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. She's going to beat him in a brawl, just because she's not just doing kung fu. She's doing supernatural kung fu, and she has the speed, the strength, the agility that's greater than any human. So if it's just a physical confrontation, Batman, and he doesn't have anything else to use to advantage, then Jin would win. But if anybody knows how to use the elements and use his surroundings and use what he knows psychologically about a character to his advantage, it's the Batman.
I think I'm going to tip it towards Jin on this one, just for the simple fact that the setup is the Beyonder took them to Battle World. So I think Batman doesn't have his network. Okay. I would agree with you. If this were taking place in Gotham or maybe even Los Santos, I think Batman would win, especially if it were a long, drawn-out thing where they're sort of psychologically battling over weeks. But yeah. I think just popped into an arena, I got to give it to Jin.
Yeah, I got to give it to Jin. If they're just popped into an arena and they're just going toe-to-toe, no, I don't think Batman can't beat Jin that way.
So for the title of Best Martial Artist in Comicsdom, Cammy versus Jin.
So if it comes down to just raw martial arts, I think that's almost like a draw. I think they're both beasts. But the thing is, Jin's power, the power that she has, the speed, the strength. I mean, Cammy is amazing, but Jin is supernatural, with her power. So, I mean, in that regard, and Jin, I mean, I know Cammy is, she's tough as nails, but when it comes to fighting, Jin is tough as nails too. I think it would be knockdown. It would be knockdown, drag out. I realize I'm very, very biased in this regard, but I think my girl wins it. I think my girl's the one that comes out of the Thunderdome. I think Jin wins that.
I think you're right. I think had maybe Psylocke or Aang won in the one against Cammy's bracket, I think Jin would have a lot harder of a time. But
that's the funny thing. I actually thought about that. I was like, Aang and Psylocke knocking each other, one knocking the other out was nice. It's kind of like any bracket.
Yeah.
Brackets aren't always about who the best team is. It's about the best matchups.
Exactly.
I think either one of those would not have been a very favorable matchup for Black Tiger.
And it looks like Eric agrees with us here. You're right. We got to give it to Jen in the final round. So congratulations to Jen and her Black Tiger style Kung Fu.
Yay for supernatural Kung Fu and not having to see Aang or Psylocke.
The strongest of all comics martial artists.
Oh, we said that, and that almost calls out to Chun-Li.
I actually flipped a quarter if it was going to be Chun-Li or Cammy.
Yeah.
And I think Chun-Li is definitely the more popular character, but
I don't know. I think Cammy beat Chun-Li?
I think it depends on which version.
Depends? Okay. Yeah.
But all right. So
the Thunderdome was kind of brutal, man. That was good stuff. And there's that's like thinking about MMA. You see blood on the mat. There's definitely a lot of DNA left over.
Yeah, a lot of them have summer teeth. Some are here, some are there.
Exactly. Well, that was fun, man. That's really cool.
Thank you. Is there anything else we should mention?
No, not at this time, man.
Magna or.
Well, okay. So one thing I will mention, especially since Eric is here, the commissions are on the way to me. They are in the mail. So I'm hoping to get all the commissions and some of the work that Rod auctioned off, I think on the second day of the Black Tiger auction, are coming to me. So I'll be getting those hopefully on the earlier part of this upcoming week, and then I will be getting everybody's stuff to them. If you had a Magna commission, then you'll get your book and your commission. And if you had like sequential pages for Black Tiger from the prior, auction, I'll get those out to you.
All right. Well, just one last time. Black Tiger Hidden Dragon still up on Indiegogo. What are we at? 29 more days.
That's right.
So if you haven't got your order in, get it in. The book looks fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm super excited. Rod Luper, who's the penciler and the inker, his game, he is like the Super Saiyan of artists. He keeps leveling up and leveling up and leveling up, and as so many people in the independent community are doing. So, you can get 172 pages of Black Tiger Legacy of Fury, which is the prior book. Then you can get 88 pages of Hidden Dragon Volume 1. So you can come away, if you're unfamiliar with Black Tiger, you can come away with 260 pages of Black Tiger goodness.
That's a lot of book.
That's a lot of book. That'll keep you busy for a minute.
All right. Well, John, thanks a lot for coming back. I know you got a busy
Yang.
Saturday ahead of you.
Man. Appreciate you, Yang.
And thanks everyone else for coming. If you like this, give me a thumbs up.
That's right.
Oh.
That's right.
Question
That's right.
real quick. Rod's Ghost Rider water paint.
Oh man, it's beast mode.
Oh, I haven't seen it. Where is it?
It's insane.
On his Instagram or?
I don't know where he has it posted now, but it is absolutely gorgeous. I check his Instagram, or I check Rod's. I think his YouTube is 2D Art.
Oh,
the number
I didn't realize he had a
2D
YouTube
Art. Yeah, he does. And I'm hoping with that water painting, I don't know if he did. Yeah, I'm hoping he did like a time lapse. Oh, it's on Twitter. Okay.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, amazing.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. Everyone subscribe. And if you have anyone else you'd like to see on the channel, leave it in the comments.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.